The coffee shop in Norfolk, Virginia was half empty on a Tuesday morning when Emily Carter noticed the man watching her. She'd been coming to this same cafe for 3 years, ever since she'd taken the civilian engineering position at the naval shipyard, and she'd learned to recognize the regulars. This man wasn't one of them. He sat in the corner booth, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses despite the overcast sky outside, his posture too rigid, too alert. Military, Emily thought automatically, or former military. She'd worked around enough service members to recognize the bearing. But something about him felt wrong, predatory in a way that made her skin crawl. Emily tried to shake off the feeling. She was tired, that was all. She'd been working 18-hour days for the past month, finalizing designs for a new stealth coding system that would revolutionize naval warfare. The project was classified, high priority, and extraordinarily stressful. Of course she was paranoid. She gathered her laptop and coffee, nodded to the barista she knew by name, and walked out into the gray morning. The man in the corner didn't move, didn't follow. See? Just paranoia. But as Emily walked the 3 blocks to the shipyard civilian entrance, she couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her back. Emily Carter was 32 years old, with a doctorate in materials engineering from MIT and a resume that had made the Navy's civilian recruitment office practically beg her to join their team. She was brilliant, everyone said so. She was also quiet, socially awkward, and completely uninterested in the politics and power games that came with working on classified military projects. She just wanted to solve problems. She wanted to create things that worked, that mattered, that could save lives. The stealth coding she'd developed over the past 2 years was her masterpiece. It could render ships nearly invisible to radar and sonar, giving the U.S. Navy a strategic advantage that would take enemy nations decades to counter. The Pentagon had already greenlit production. Companies were bidding for contracts worth billions of dollars. And Emily, who'd grown up poor in rural West Virginia, whose father had died in a coal mine collapse when she was 10, whose mother had cleaned houses to pay for her community college classes before the scholarships kicked in, Emily just wanted to do good work and be left alone. She didn't realize that her invention had made her a target. That evening, Emily stayed late at the lab as usual, running final simulations on her computer models. The shipyard was mostly empty after 1800 hours, just security guards making their rounds and a few other workaholics like herself burning the midnight oil. She was so focused on her screen that she didn't hear the footsteps behind her until it was too late. "Dr. Carter," a voice said, and Emily spun around with a gasp. The man from the coffee shop stood in her lab doorway. Up close, he was even more intimidating, 6 feet tall, heavily muscled, with a scar running along his jawline and eyes that held no warmth at all. "Who are you?" Emily demanded, her hand moving toward the panic button installed under every workstation. "This is a restricted area. I'm calling security." "I wouldn't do that," the man interrupted, and there was a gun in his hand now, pointed casually at her chest. "We need to talk, Dr. Carter. About your stealth coding formula." Emily's blood turned to ice. "I don't know what you're talking about." The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yes, you do. And you're going to give me the complete specifications, manufacturing process, chemical composition, application procedures. Everything." "That's classified information," Emily said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I can't just hand over." "You can and you will." The man stepped into the lab, closing the door behind him. "My employers are willing to pay handsomely for your cooperation. $5 million, transferred to any account you specify. All you have to do is copy the files onto this drive." He tossed a thumb drive onto her desk. Emily stared at it like it was a snake. "No," she said firmly. "I'm not betraying my country for money. Get out before I—" The gun came up, aimed directly at her face now. "Before you what?" "Call for help. We both know security won't reach you in time. And I've been authorized to use whatever means necessary to obtain this information." Emily's mind raced. She was a civilian, not a soldier. She'd never been trained for situations like this. But she'd also grown up tough, raised by a mother who taught her that you never back down when someone tried to bully you. "Who are you working for?" she asked, buying time. "Russian? Chinese?" The man's smile widened. "Does it matter? The point is, they're willing to pay. And you're going to cooperate, one way or another. And if I don't? Then I make this very unpleasant for you until you change your mind." He gestured with the gun toward her computer. "Now start copying files." Emily's hand was still near the panic button. She calculated the distance, the angle, the man's reaction time. She'd have maybe half a second before he fired. But half a second might be enough. She slammed her palm down on the button and simultaneously threw herself sideways, behind her heavy metal desk. The gun fired, deafeningly loud in the enclosed space, and her computer monitor exploded in a shower of glass and sparks. Alarms shrieked through the building. The man cursed and ran toward Emily, clearly intending to drag her out before security arrived. But Emily had grown up with 3 brothers who taught her how to fight dirty. As he reached for her, she grabbed a heavy wrench from her tool drawer and swung it with all her strength at his knee. The crack of bone was audible even over the alarms. The man went down with a scream, and Emily scrambled to her feet, running for the door. She almost made it. His hand closed around her ankle, yanking her off balance. Emily hit the floor hard, the impact driving the air from her lungs. The man crawled on top of her, his injured leg dragging behind him, his face twisted with rage and pain. "You stupid bitch," he snarled, his hands closing around her throat. "You could have been rich. You could have lived. Now I'm going to." The lab door burst open, and 2 security guards rushed in with weapons drawn. "Freeze. Hands up." The man looked up, made a split-second calculation, and released Emily's throat. He rolled off her and stumbled to his feet, hands raised. Emily gasped for air, her vision swimming with black spots. She heard the security guards calling for backup, heard them reading the man his rights, heard the distant wail of sirens approaching. And she heard the man laugh, a cold, humorless sound. "This isn't over, Dr. Carter," he said as the guards cuffed him. "There are others. They won't stop. Your formula is too valuable. They'll keep coming until they get what they want." Emily sat up slowly, her throat aching, her hands shaking with adrenaline. She looked at the man being hauled away and realized with sinking certainty that he was telling the truth. This was just the beginning. The Navy's investigation moved quickly. The man called himself John Smith, but his fingerprints identified him as Marcus Webb, former Army Ranger with a dishonorable discharge for selling weapons on the black market. He'd been working as a private military contractor, a mercenary, essentially, for the past 5 years. Under interrogation, Webb refused to identify his employers. He had a lawyer within hours, expensive and aggressive, who made it clear that Webb wouldn't be talking without a deal. Emily was questioned extensively. She told them everything: the coffee shop, the gun, the offer of money, the attack. The Navy praised her for her quick thinking and bravery. They assured her that Webb would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But they also told her something that made her blood run cold. Webb had been in the United States for 3 months before his attack, moving between various cities where defense contractors operated. The FBI believed he'd successfully stolen classified information from at least 2 other targets before attempting to take Emily's formula. "We're assigning you a security detail," Captain David Morrison told her in a quiet conference room at the shipyard. Morrison was head of security for the facility, a stern man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. "Until we identify who hired Webb and neutralize the threat, you'll have armed protection whenever you leave your home." "I have to leave my home every day," Emily pointed out. "I have work." "You're being placed on temporary administrative leave," Morrison interrupted. "With full pay, of course." But we can't risk another attempt on your life, and we certainly can't risk your knowledge falling into enemy hands. Emily felt a flash of anger. So I'm supposed to just sit at home and hide? For how long? Until the threat is resolved. That could be months. Years, even. Emily stood, pacing the small room. Captain, I didn't become an engineer to hide in my apartment. I have research to complete, projects that are time-sensitive. Dr. Carter. Morrison's voice was firm but not unkind. You're valuable to this country, not just for what you know but for what you can still create. We need to keep you safe. That's not negotiable. Emily wanted to argue more, but she could see it was pointless. The Navy had made its decision. She went home that evening with 2 armed guards following her car. She lived in a modest townhouse in a quiet neighborhood, nothing fancy despite her impressive salary. She'd never cared much about material things. Inside, she locked the door, closed all the curtains, and sat on her couch in the dark, trying to process everything that had happened. Someone wanted her formula badly enough to hire a mercenary. Badly enough to attempt kidnapping and possibly murder. And Webb had said there were others, that they wouldn't stop. Emily pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found a name she hadn't called in 2 years, Lieutenant Commander Rachel Torres, a Navy officer who'd worked with Emily on a previous project. They'd become friends during those months, bonding over their shared experiences as women in male-dominated fields. Rachel answered on the 3rd ring. Emily. Hey, it's been forever. How are you? I'm. Emily's voice broke unexpectedly. Rachel, something happened. I don't know who else to call. Rachel's tone immediately sharpened with concern. What's wrong? Are you safe? Emily told her everything. When she finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Jesus, Rachel breathed. I'm so sorry. But listen, the Navy's right to put you under protection. If Webb's employers are determined enough to send more contractors. I know, Emily interrupted. I know they're right. But Rachel, I feel so useless. So helpless. I spent my whole life learning how to solve problems, and now I can't even protect myself. Another pause. Then Rachel said carefully, what if there was someone who could help? Someone outside normal channels. What do you mean? I know a guy, Rachel said. Navy SEAL, really good at his job. He's also one of the most honorable men I've ever met. If you wanted, I could make an introduction. He might be able to provide additional security, or at least advice on how to stay safe until this blows over. Emily hesitated. Wouldn't that go against Navy protocol? I already have official security. Official security follows procedures, works within systems. But sometimes systems have holes. And Emily, if someone is determined enough to get to you, they'll find those holes. Rachel's voice was serious. I'm talking about someone who thinks outside the box. Someone who could keep you alive if things go sideways. Emily thought about Webb's cold eyes, his absolute certainty that others would come for her. She thought about spending months locked in her house, living in fear, while somewhere out there, people planned her death or abduction. Okay, she said finally. Set up the meeting. His name is Chief Petty Officer Marcus Kane, Rachel told her. Call sign Reaper. And he has a K-9 partner named Havoc. They're a package deal. A dog? A combat assault dog. Former special operations. Trust me, you'll be glad to have them both on your side. Marcus Kane and Havoc arrived at Emily's townhouse at 0900 hours the next morning. Emily watched through her window as a pickup truck parked on the street and a man climbed out, followed immediately by a massive Belgian Malinois. Kane was tall and lean, with dark hair cropped military short and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He moved with the fluid confidence of someone completely comfortable in his own skin, someone who'd seen combat and survived. He wore civilian clothes, jeans, a simple black shirt, but everything about him screamed military. The dog, Havoc, was equally impressive. His coat was a rich fawn color with a black mask, and his body was pure muscle and focused energy. But despite his intimidating appearance, he walked calmly at Kane's side, his attention fixed on his handler with absolute devotion. Emily opened the door before they could knock. The security guard stationed outside straightened, clearly recognizing Kane's bearing if not his face. "Dr. Carter." Kane's voice was deep and measured. "I'm Marcus Kane. Rachel Torres asked me to stop by." "Yes, come in. Please." Emily stepped back, and Kane entered with Havoc at his heels. The dog immediately did a sweep of the entry area, nose working, then returned to Kane's side and sat. "All clear," Kane said, and there was the ghost of a smile on his face. "Havoc takes his job seriously." "So I see." Emily found herself staring at the dog, who was watching her with intelligent brown eyes. "Is he friendly?" "Very. When he's off duty." Kane gave a soft command, and Havoc's demeanor immediately changed, his tail wagging as he approached Emily for a greeting. "You can pet him." Emily hesitantly reached out, and Havoc leaned into her touch, his tail wagging harder. Despite everything, she felt herself smile. She'd always loved dogs but had never had time to own one with her demanding work schedule. "He likes you," Kane observed. "That's a good sign. Havoc has excellent judgment about people." They moved into Emily's living room, and Kane's eyes swept the space with professional assessment, exits, windows, sight lines. Emily saw him note the closed curtains, the security system panel, the baseball bat she'd propped beside the front door. "Rachel filled me in on what happened," Kane said, settling onto her couch with the easy grace of someone comfortable anywhere. Havoc lay at his feet, relaxed but alert. "Marcus Webb. Former ranger turned contractor. Someone hired him to steal your classified research." "That's the summary, yes." Emily sat across from him, wrapping her arms around herself. "The Navy has assigned me security, but official security has protocols and limitations," Kane finished. "They can protect you from direct threats, but they can't necessarily protect you from someone with resources and patience." "That's what Rachel said." Kane leaned forward, his expression serious. "Dr. Carter, I need you to understand something. If Webb's employers are determined, if they have the money and connections that it seems like they do, then you're in real danger. Not just of theft, of abduction, torture, even death. These people play for keeps." Emily's throat tightened, but she nodded. "I understand." "Good. Now, Rachel asked me to consult on your security situation. I can't provide official protection, I'm active duty SEAL, and I have orders. But I can assess your current setup, identify vulnerabilities, and make recommendations. I can also teach you some basic self-defense and evasion techniques." He paused. "And if it comes down to it, if someone makes a move and your official security fails, Havoc and I can respond." "Unofficially. Why would you do that?" Emily asked. "You don't know me. This isn't your responsibility." Kane's expression softened slightly. "Rachel vouched for you. Said you're one of the good ones, someone who's trying to help protect our sailors and soldiers. That's enough for me." He glanced at Havoc. "And besides, taking down bad guys is kind of our specialty." Despite her fear, Emily felt herself warming to this quiet, confident man and his incredible dog. There was something reassuring about Kane's presence, a sense that he was someone who kept his word and followed through on his commitments. "What do I need to do?" she asked. "First, tell me everything about your routine. Where you go, when you go there, who you interact with. Every detail, no matter how small." Emily spent the next hour walking Kane through her life, her daily schedule before the attack, her friends and colleagues, her family back in West Virginia. Kane listened carefully, asking occasional questions, while Havoc dozed at his feet. "You don't have much of a social life," Kane observed when she finished. "Work keeps me busy," Emily replied, a little defensively. "That's going to work in our favor. Fewer variables to account for." Kane pulled out a small notebook. "Here's what I'm seeing. Your townhouse is decent for security, only one entrance, good sight lines from the windows. But the backyard fence is too low, and there are too many trees providing cover. I'll talk to your security team about repositioning their surveillance." He continued listing improvements: better locks, a safe room with reinforced walls, a panic button linked directly to 911 and the Naval Security Office. "And I want to teach you some basics," Kane added. "Not how to fight, you won't beat a trained operative in hand-to-hand combat. But how to escape, how to make noise, how to create opportunities for help to arrive. When do we start?" "Now, if you're willing." They spent the rest of the morning on practical training. Kane showed Emily how to break different types of grips, how to strike vulnerable targets to buy time, how to use common household items as weapons. He was patient but demanding, making her repeat movements until they became muscle memory. Havoc watched the entire session with interest, his eyes tracking their movements. Occasionally, Kane would call the dog over to demonstrate something: how Havoc could attack on command, how quickly he could take down a target, how his presence alone changed the dynamics of any threat. "If someone corners you and I'm nearby," Kane explained, "all you have to do is scream, 'Havoc.' He's trained to respond to his name as an attack command when it's shouted. He'll come running, and he won't stop until I call him off or the threat is eliminated." Emily looked at the dog, friendly and gentle one moment, potentially lethal the next, and felt a strange sense of comfort. It was like having a guardian angel with teeth. By noon, Emily was exhausted but felt stronger somehow. More capable. Less like a helpless victim. "You did good," Kane told her as they took a water break. "Most civilians panic when they're attacked. You kept your head, used available weapons, and survived until help arrived. That takes courage." "I didn't feel courageous," Emily admitted. "I felt terrified." "Courage isn't the absence of fear," Kane said. "It's acting despite fear. And you did that." They were interrupted by a knock at the door. One of Emily's security guards poked his head in. "Dr. Carter, there's a call for you from Captain Morrison. He says it's urgent." Emily's stomach dropped. She took the phone the guard offered. "Dr. Carter," Morrison's voice was tight with tension. "We have a problem. Marcus Webb posted bail an hour ago." "What?" Emily felt the blood drain from her face. "How is that possible?" "He tried to kill me." His lawyer argued that Webb was defending himself after you attacked him with a wrench. Claimed it was a misunderstanding, that Webb was just trying to have a conversation about legitimate business. The judge set bail at $2 million, and someone paid it immediately. Webb walked out of the detention facility 30 minutes ago. Where is he now? We don't know. He ditched his ankle monitor within 10 minutes of release. Dr. Carter, we have to assume he's coming for you. We're doubling your security detail immediately. Emily looked at Kane, who'd been listening to her side of the conversation with growing concern. I have additional protection, Emily said into the phone. A friend sent someone to help. I don't care if you have the Marines guarding you, Morrison snapped. Webb is a professional. He's angry, he's motivated, and he now knows our security protocols. You need to disappear, Dr. Carter. We're arranging a safe house. No. Emily surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. Webb said there would be others. If I run now, I'll spend the rest of my life running. I'd rather make a stand. Morrison was silent for a long moment. That's brave but stupid. Maybe. But it's my choice. After she hung up, Kane studied her with a new expression, something like respect mixed with exasperation. That was either very brave or very reckless, he said. You just told me courage is acting despite fear, Emily pointed out. So which is it? Kane's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. Both, probably. He stood, his demeanor shifting into something harder, more focused. All right, Dr. Carter. If you're going to make a stand, we're going to do it right. Havoc and I are moving into your guest room. Your security team will handle the perimeter, but we'll be your last line of defense. And if Webb or anyone else tries to get to you, they'll have to go through you, Emily finished. And Havoc, Kane added. Never forget about Havoc. He saved my life more times than I can count. He won't let anything happen to you either. Emily looked at the dog, who was sitting calmly beside Kane, and felt something shift in her chest. For the first time since the attack, she didn't feel alone. She felt like maybe, just maybe, she had a chance. Webb didn't wait long to make his move. 3 days after posting bail, Emily's security camera captured him doing surveillance of her townhouse, watching from a parked car across the street at 0300 hours. He stayed for 30 minutes, then drove away. Kane reviewed the footage with cold focus. He's planning something. Probing our defenses, looking for weaknesses. Should we call the police? Emily asked. He's violating his bail conditions just by being near me. By the time police arrive, he'll be gone. And tipping our hand that we know he's watching won't help us. Kane replayed the video. Webb's smart. He knows he can't just break down your front door with your security team present. He'll wait for an opportunity when you're vulnerable. I'm not going anywhere, Emily said. I've been inside for 3 days straight. How can I be vulnerable if I don't leave? Kane looked at her seriously. Everyone has to leave eventually. Doctor's appointments, grocery shopping, emergencies. Webb is patient. He'll wait. As if on cue, Emily's phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, but something made her answer. Emily Carter, a woman's voice asked. Yes. This is St. Mary's Hospital. I'm calling about your mother, Linda Carter. She was brought into our emergency room an hour ago after a fall. She's asking for you. Emily's heart stopped. What? Is she okay? What happened? She's stable, but she has a possible hip fracture. The doctors want to keep her for observation. Can you come in? Emily's mind raced. Her mother was 70 years old, still living alone in their hometown of Beckley, West Virginia. A hip fracture at her age could be devastating. I'm in Norfolk, Virginia, Emily said, her voice shaking. That's 5 hours away. Can I speak to her? She's resting now, but the doctors really think you should be here. Family presence makes such a difference in recovery. Emily hung up and immediately started packing a bag with trembling hands. Kane watched her, his expression unreadable. You're leaving, he stated. My mother fell. She needs me. Emily. Kane's voice was gentle but firm. Did they ask you for any information to verify your identity? Social security number, address, anything? Emily froze, her hands still in her suitcase. No. Why would they? She turned to look at Kane, and she saw the answer in his eyes. Oh God. You think it's a trap? Call the hospital back. Ask to speak to the attending physician. Ask specific questions that only real medical staff would know how to answer. Emily grabbed her phone and dialed St. Mary's main number. When she asked to be connected to the emergency room regarding Linda Carter, the receptionist put her on hold for several minutes. Finally, a confused nurse came on the line. I'm sorry, ma'am, but we don't have any patient by that name. And we haven't had any elderly women admitted with hip fractures in the past 24 hours. Emily thanked her and hung up, her hands shaking with a mixture of relief and anger. It was fake. Someone called pretending to be from the hospital. Webb or his associates, Kane confirmed. They're trying to draw you out, get you away from your security. Once you're on the road, alone and vulnerable, they'll make their move. But what if something really does happen to my mom? Emily's voice cracked. What if she needs me and I don't go because I'm too paranoid to trust anyone? Kane pulled out his phone. What's your mother's address? Emily gave it to him, and Kane made a call. Torres, it's Kane. I need a welfare check. Yes, I know it's 0400 hours. Beckley, West Virginia. He rattled off the address, listened for a moment, then hung up. Rachel's going to have the local police do a wellness check, Kane explained. If your mother is fine, we'll know within the hour. If there's a real problem, they'll contact us immediately. Emily sank onto her couch, the adrenaline draining out of her. Havoc padded over and rested his head on her knee, his dark eyes sympathetic. She stroked his soft ears gratefully. How do you live like this? She asked Kane quietly. Always suspicious, always looking for threats. It's exhausting. It keeps you alive, Kane replied. And it gets easier. You start to recognize the patterns, the tells. Webb's getting desperate. That's good for us, desperate people make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? The kind that get them caught. Kane sat across from her. But we need to flip this script. Right now, Webb is hunting you. We need to become the hunters. Emily looked up. What do you mean? I mean we set a trap. We give Webb what he thinks is an opportunity, and when he takes it, we take him down. Using me as bait, Emily said slowly. Only if you're willing. And only with every possible safeguard in place. Kane's expression was serious. I won't lie to you, Emily. There's risk. But the alternative is spending the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, waiting for Webb or the next contractor to strike. At least this way, we control the battlefield. Emily thought about her mother, safe in Beckley. She thought about the formula in her head that could save American lives. She thought about Marcus Webb's cold certainty that they would never stop coming for her. What do I have to do? She asked. The plan took 2 days to set up. Rachel Torres pulled strings to get Kane temporary detachment for special security operations, giving him official cover to be with Emily. The security detail was briefed on the operation, most of them, anyway. Kane insisted on operational security, limiting the details to only those who absolutely needed to know. Webb had inside information, Kane explained to Captain Morrison during the planning session. He knew too much about Emily's schedule, her lab security, her routines. That means either he did extensive surveillance, or someone gave him information. Morrison's face darkened. You're suggesting we have a leak? I'm suggesting we can't rule it out. So the fewer people who know about this operation, the better. The trap was elegantly simple. Emily would let it be known through carefully monitored channels that she needed to visit a specialist security firm in Richmond to discuss additional protection. She'd drive there herself, against the advice of her security team, but Emily was stubborn and independent, everyone knew that. She'd take the interstate, a 2-hour drive, making her vulnerable. In reality, Kane and Havoc would be in the vehicle with her, hidden in the back of her SUV. A secondary team of SEALs, people Kane trusted absolutely, would maintain loose surveillance from multiple vehicles. And the security firm in Richmond was actually a safe house controlled by naval intelligence. Webb will see this as his chance, Kane explained. Open road, minimal witnesses, a target who thinks she's being careful but is actually exposed. He'll make his move. And when he does? Emily asked, trying to keep her voice steady. We stop him. Permanently, if necessary. The morning of the operation, Emily woke before dawn, her stomach in knots. She found Kane already up, checking weapons and gear with methodical precision. Havoc sat nearby, watching his handler with patient attention. You ready? Kane asked without looking up. No, Emily admitted. But I'm doing it anyway. Kane finally looked at her, and something in his expression softened. "You're braver than you think, Dr. Carter. Most people would have taken the safe house option, hidden away until someone else solved their problem. You're facing it head-on. That takes guts." "Or stupidity," Emily said, echoing their earlier conversation. "Little bit of both," Kane agreed with a slight smile. "The best warriors always have a touch of crazy in them." They loaded the SUV carefully. Kane and Havoc climbed into the back cargo area, where Kane had built a concealed position behind darkly tinted panels. Unless someone actually opened the hatch and pulled the panels aside, they'd never know anyone was back there. Emily got behind the wheel, her hands slick with nervous sweat. She pulled out of her driveway at 0800 hours, following the route Kane had mapped out. Her security detail followed at a discreet distance, or at least, that's what anyone watching would think. In reality, those vehicles would peel off after the first 10 miles, replaced by Kane's SEAL team. The morning was gray and cool, with heavy clouds threatening rain. Traffic was moderate on I-64 heading west toward Richmond. Emily tried to drive normally, not too fast or slow, just another commuter making a routine trip. Through her rearview mirror, she could see Kane's eyes watching the road behind them. Havoc was lying down but alert, his ears swiveling at every sound. They'd been driving for 45 minutes when Kane spoke quietly. "We've got a tail. Black sedan, 3 cars back. Been with us since mile marker 32. Emily's heart rate spiked, but she kept her eyes forward. "Is it Webb?" "Can't tell yet. Could be our guys, could be his. Just keep driving naturally." Another 15 minutes passed. The sedan maintained its distance, neither closing in nor falling back. Then, as they approached a section of road with heavy tree cover on both sides, Kane's radio crackled. "Reaper, this is Eagle 2. We've got movement. Second vehicle just appeared, white van, coming up fast on your 6. "Copy that," Kane replied calmly. "Emily, when I tell you, I need you to speed up. Not too much, just enough to create distance. Can you do that?" "Yes," Emily said, though her mouth was dry as dust. The white van was visible in her mirror now, closing fast. The black sedan had dropped back slightly, boxing them in from behind. "Now," Kane commanded. Emily pressed the accelerator, and the SUV surged forward. The van matched her speed, then exceeded it, pulling alongside them in the left lane. "Get down!" Kane shouted, and Emily ducked just as the van's side door slid open and a man with a rifle appeared. But he never got the chance to fire. Kane erupted from the back cargo area like a demon, his own weapon up and ready. He fired 3 precise shots through the SUV's passenger window, shattering the glass and hitting the shooter in the shoulder and chest. The man dropped, and the van swerved wildly. "Keep driving," Kane ordered Emily, but she was already accelerating, her training from the past few days kicking in. Behind them, the SEAL team vehicles appeared, surrounding the van and sedan. The black sedan tried to flee, only to be cut off by an unmarked truck that forced it off the road. The van, its driver panicking, overcorrected and slammed into the guardrail. Kane had already opened the SUV's side door. "Havoc, out!" The Belgian Malinois leaped from the moving vehicle with terrifying grace, hitting the pavement running. He streaked toward the crashed van, where a man was trying to climb out of the driver's seat. Havoc hit him like a missile, 70 pounds of trained aggression. The man went down screaming, and Havoc maintained his bite hold on the man's arm, shaking and pulling until the man stopped struggling. Emily had pulled over, her whole body shaking. She watched in the mirror as Kane approached the van, his weapon ready. 2 other SEALs secured the black sedan, pulling out 2 men in handcuffs. "Clear," someone called out. Kane gave Havoc the release command, and the dog immediately let go, backing away but maintaining his alert stance. Kane zip-tied the driver's hands while another SEAL checked on the injured shooter in the back of the van. "He's alive," the SEAL reported. Needs medical attention, but he'll survive. Kane walked back to Emily's SUV and opened her door. His face was spattered with glass fragments, but his expression was calm. "You okay?" "I think so." Emily's voice came out as a whisper. "Is Webb?" "Not here. These are hired muscle, probably subcontractors Webb recruited. But we've got them now, and they're going to talk." The interrogation took place at a secure facility that Emily wasn't allowed to know the location of. She waited in a comfortable room with Havoc for company while Kane and Rachel Torres questioned the captured men. The dog had shifted back into his friendly mode, happily accepting Emily's pets and even doing tricks for the treats she'd been given by one of the guards. It was hard to believe this sweet, gentle animal had taken down an armed man just hours ago. Kane emerged after 2 hours, looking grim but satisfied. "They talked," he told Emily. "Wasn't hard, these guys are low-level criminals, not trained operatives. Webb hired them off the dark web for $10,000 each. They were supposed to force you off the road, grab you, and deliver you to a warehouse in Suffolk. And then what? Webb would have interrogated you there. Gotten the formula one way or another, then." Kane didn't finish, but Emily could fill in the blanks. "Did they say where Webb is now?" "That's the interesting part. They've never met him in person. All contact was through encrypted messaging. Webb paid them in cryptocurrency. They don't know where he is." Emily felt her hope deflate. "So we're back where we started." "Not quite." Kane showed her his phone, where a message was displayed. "Webb sent this to the shooter's phones 10 minutes ago. The message read, *Target should be in your possession by now. Waiting at coordinates. Update, *. He's waiting for them to deliver me," Emily realized. He gave them coordinates. A warehouse in Suffolk, like they said. And he's there right now, thinking his plan worked. Kane's expression was cold and determined. "Which means we've got him." The warehouse was in an industrial area near the waterfront, surrounded by other abandoned buildings and empty lots. Perfect for privacy, terrible for the person being held there. Kane assembled his team quickly, 6 SEALs plus himself and Havoc. Emily was ordered to stay behind at the safe house, but she'd argued until Kane relented and let her ride along in one of the surveillance vehicles. She couldn't participate in the takedown, but she could watch. "Webb is dangerous," Kane warned his team. "Former Ranger, extensive combat experience, and he's got nothing to lose. We go in fast, we go in hard, and we don't give him a chance to react." They approached the warehouse from multiple angles, using the darkness and heavy rain that had finally started to fall. Emily watched through binoculars from 2 blocks away, her heart pounding. Kane and Havoc took point, moving silently through the shadows. Emily saw them pause at a door, Kane giving hand signals she didn't understand. Then they breached, and chaos erupted. Gunfire lit up the warehouse interior. Emily heard shouting, the bark of orders, Havoc's fierce growling. It lasted maybe 30 seconds, an eternity to Emily's terrified mind, and then silence. Kane's voice came over the radio. "Target secured. 1 hostile down. We need medical." Emily closed her eyes in relief. Webb had been shot in the leg during the takedown, injured but alive. He'd been waiting in the warehouse with enough weapons and equipment to outfit a small army, clearly planning to torture Emily for information before killing her. They also found something else, evidence that Webb had been communicating with a foreign intelligence service, selling stolen American technology to the highest bidder. Emily's formula hadn't been his first target, just his most lucrative. "He'll spend the rest of his life in prison," Captain Morrison told Emily later, after everything had calmed down. "Between the attempted kidnapping, the shooting, and the espionage charges, he'll never see daylight again." Emily should have felt victorious. They'd caught Webb. They'd stopped the immediate threat. But she felt hollow instead, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. Kane found her sitting alone in the safe house later that night, staring at nothing. "You okay?" he asked, settling into a chair beside her. Havoc immediately came over to rest his head on Emily's knee. "I don't know," Emily admitted. "I should be happy, right? We won. Webb's caught. I'm safe. But I keep thinking about how close I came to dying. How if I hadn't hit that panic button, if you and Havoc hadn't been there?" She trailed off, swallowing hard. "I spent my whole life believing that intelligence and hard work were enough to solve any problem. But they weren't enough to save me. I needed you. I needed Havoc. And that makes me feel vulnerable," Kane finished softly. "Welcome to the real world, Dr. Carter. The world where bad people exist, where intelligence isn't always enough, where sometimes you need someone willing to fight for you. How do you live with that? Knowing how fragile everything is?" Kane was quiet for a moment, absently stroking Havoc's ears. "I live with it by being prepared. By training. By building a team I can trust. And by accepting that I can't control everything, but I can control how I respond when things go wrong." Emily looked at him, this quiet, confident man who'd risked his life to protect someone he barely knew. "Why did you help me, really? You said Rachel vouched for me, but it's more than that, isn't it?" Kane met her gaze. "My sister was an engineer. Civilian contractor, worked on military projects like you do. Someone leaked her identity to a terrorist cell 5 years ago. They kidnapped her for information. By the time we found her..." He stopped, his jaw tight. "We were too late." "Oh God," Emily whispered. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. Her name was Lisa. She was brilliant, just like you. And she died because no one was there to protect her when it mattered." Kane's voice was rough with old pain. "So when Rachel told me about you, about what happened, I saw a second chance. A chance to save someone like Lisa. To make sure you didn't end up like her." Emily felt tears slip down her cheeks. She reached out and took Kane's hand, squeezing it gently. "Thank you. For everything. I wouldn't be alive without you and Havoc." "You're stronger than you think," Kane said. "You survived the first attack on your own. You kept your head during the ambush. You faced your fear instead of hiding. That's all you, Emily. We just provided support." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Emily spoke again. "What happens now? Webb's caught, but he said there were others. What if his employers send someone else?" "Then we'll be ready," Kane replied firmly. "And Emily? You're not alone anymore. You've got people watching your back now. Including one very protective dog who's decided you're worth defending." Emily looked at Havoc, who was watching her with those intelligent eyes, and felt something shift in her chest. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. 2 weeks after Webb's capture, Emily sat in a secure conference room at Naval Intelligence Headquarters in Virginia Beach, surrounded by people whose names she wasn't allowed to know and whose faces she'd probably never remember. They wanted to know everything, every detail of her formula, every interaction she'd had with Webb, every moment of the attacks. She told them, over and over, until her voice was hoarse and her head ached. Finally, Captain Morrison called a break. Emily stumbled out of the conference room to find Kane waiting in the hallway with 2 cups of coffee and Havoc lying patiently at his feet. "You look like hell," Kane observed, handing her a cup. "Feel like it too." Emily sank onto a bench, and Havoc immediately came over to rest his head on her lap. She was learning that this was the dog's way of offering comfort, and she was grateful for it. "They keep asking the same questions in different ways, like they think I'm hiding something. They're just being thorough." Webb's arrest opened up a whole investigation into technology theft and foreign espionage. "Your case is part of something much bigger now." Emily sipped her coffee, feeling the caffeine start to work its magic. Have they figured out who hired Webb? Who he was selling the information to? Kane's expression darkened. That's complicated. Webb's been cooperative, relatively speaking, but the people he worked for used multiple layers of cutouts and shell companies. Naval intelligence is tracking it, but it's going to take time. So there's still a threat out there. Someone who wants my formula. Maybe. Or maybe Webb's arrest spooked them enough that they'll back off. Kane didn't sound convinced by his own words. Either way, you're staying under protection until we know for sure. Emily should have protested. She'd been living under guard for weeks now, unable to work, unable to live her normal life. But the truth was, she felt safer with Kane and Havoc around. They'd become constants in her life, familiar presences that helped her sleep at night. How much longer can you stay? She asked Kane. Don't you have regular duties to get back to? Rachel pulled more strings. I'm assigned to your security detail until further notice. Kane studied her face. Unless you want me gone. If you prefer a different. No, Emily interrupted quickly. I mean. I'm comfortable with you. With both of you. Havoc's basically moved into my guest room anyway. Kane smiled slightly. He likes you. And trust me, Havoc doesn't like everyone. They were interrupted by an unfamiliar man approaching down the hallway, tall, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit that screamed civilian rather than military. He walked with the confidence of someone used to being obeyed. Kane stood immediately, his body language shifting into something more alert. Havoc rose as well, positioning himself slightly in front of Emily. Chief Petty Officer Kane, the man said, extending his hand. I'm Gerald Blackwood. I'd like a word with Dr. Carter, if you don't mind. Kane didn't shake the offered hand. I do mind, actually. Who are you, and how did you get into a secure facility? Blackwood's smile didn't reach his eyes. I have the appropriate clearances. I'm with the Defense Intelligence Agency. We've been monitoring Dr. Carter's situation with great interest. The DA. Kane's tone was flat. And what does the DIA want with Dr. Carter? Simply to offer our protection and support. We have resources that the Navy doesn't, connections that could be valuable in keeping Dr. Carter safe. Blackwood turned his attention to Emily. Doctor, your formula is valuable not just for naval applications but for the entire defense infrastructure. We'd like to bring you under our umbrella, provide you with a secure research facility and round-the-clock protection. Emily glanced at Kane, who gave a tiny shake of his head. I appreciate the offer, she said carefully, but I'm happy with my current situation. Are you? Blackwood raised an eyebrow. You're living in a safe house, unable to work, constantly looking over your shoulder. We could give you freedom, Dr. Carter. A chance to continue your research in safety. She said no, Kane interjected, his voice hard. Now if you don't mind, we have an appointment. Blackwood's pleasant expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Of course. But Dr. Carter, if you change your mind, here's my card. The offer stands. He handed Emily a business card, nodded to Kane, and walked away. Emily stared at the card, embossed, expensive, with a phone number but no address. That was weird, she said once Blackwood was out of earshot. That was very weird, Kane agreed. He pulled out his phone and took a picture of the card. I'm going to have Rachel check this guy out. Something about him feels wrong. He had the right clearances to be here, though. Security let him in. That's what worries me. Kane's expression was troubled. Emily, until we know more about Blackwood and why the DIA is suddenly interested in you, don't accept any offers from anyone. Don't go anywhere without clearing it with me first. And if you see him again, call me immediately. Emily felt the familiar flutter of anxiety in her chest. You think he's connected to Webb? I think it's suspicious that a DIA agent shows up out of nowhere, offering you exactly what you might be tempted to accept. The best traps are the ones that don't look like traps. Rachel Torres ran Blackwood's information that evening and came back with disturbing news. Gerald Blackwood does work for the DIA, she told Kane and Emily over a secure video call. But his record is spotty. He's been involved in some questionable operations, including one that involved illegally selling classified information to allied nations without proper authorization. So he's dirty, Kane said. Maybe. Or maybe he's just willing to bend rules that other people follow. Either way, he's not someone I'd trust with a civilian asset like Emily. Rachel paused. There's something else. Blackwood requested access to Emily's file 3 days ago. Before Webb was even caught. How did he know to be interested in her? Emily felt ice creep down her spine. Someone told him. Someone with access to classified information about my case. The leak, Kane said grimly. Morrison was right to be paranoid. Someone inside the Navy or DoD is feeding information to outside parties. Who? Emily asked. Who would do that? Could be anyone with access and the right motivation, money, ideology, blackmail. Rachel's image on the screen looked frustrated. I'm running background checks on everyone who had access to your case file, but that's going to take time. Meanwhile, you need to watch your back. If Blackwood is involved in this, he's got resources and connections. After the call ended, Kane paced Emily's safe house living room, thinking hard. Havoc tracked his handler's movements with patient eyes. We need to flush out the leak, Kane said finally. And I think I know how to do it. But Emily, it's going to require you to take another risk. Emily was getting used to taking risks. What do you need me to do? We're going to feed false information through different channels, tell certain people that you're moving to a specific location, tell others something different. Whichever piece of false intel makes it to Blackwood or other hostile parties will tell us who the leak is. A canary trap, Emily said, recognizing the technique from spy novels she'd read. Exactly. But we have to be careful. If the leak realizes what we're doing, they'll go to ground and we'll never find them. Kane stopped pacing and looked at her seriously. And Emily, there's a chance that once we identify the leak, they might panic and do something desperate. You could be in danger again. I'm already in danger, Emily pointed out. At least this way, we're taking action instead of just reacting. Kane nodded slowly. Okay. I'll coordinate with Rachel and Morrison. We'll set this up carefully. The canary trap took 3 days to deploy. Rachel fed different pieces of information to 3 different people, all of whom had access to Emily's case file. Commander James Wilson, Morrison's second-in-command, was told Emily would be moving to a secure facility in San Diego. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, who'd handled some of the evidence gathering, was told Emily would be transported to a research facility in Maryland. And civilian contractor Thomas Reed, who'd provided technical support for the investigation, was told Emily would be staying at a safe house in North Carolina. Then they waited. On the second day, Blackwood called Emily's phone directly. She let it go to voicemail. Dr. Carter, this is Gerald Blackwood from the DIA. I understand you're being moved to North Carolina soon. I really think you should reconsider our offer before you make that trip. The facility we have in mind would be much more secure. Please call me back. Kane and Rachel listened to the voicemail with grim satisfaction. Thomas Reed, Rachel said. The contractor. He's our leak. Reed was a 45-year-old former military tech specialist who transitioned to civilian consulting work 5 years ago. He had gambling debts, an expensive divorce, and access to dozens of classified projects. Perfect target for recruitment. We bring him in? Kane asked. Not yet. If we arrest him now, whoever he's working for will just disappear. We need to follow him, see who he reports to, build the full picture. Rachel paused. But that means Emily stays at risk a little longer. "I can handle it," Emily said, though her voice was less steady than she would have liked. Kane looked at her with something like admiration. "You keep surprising me, Dr. Carter. Most civilians would be demanding witness protection by now." "Maybe I'm not most civilians anymore," Emily replied. The surveillance on Reed paid off faster than anyone expected. 2 days after the Canary trap, Reed met with Blackwood in a parking garage in downtown Norfolk. Kane's team recorded the entire conversation. "The subject is being paranoid," Reed was saying. "They've got her locked down tight. Kane and that dog of his never leave her side. Then we need to separate her from her protection," Blackwood replied. "What about the mother angle? Did that work before?" "No," Kane saw through it. "He's too smart. Everyone has a weakness, Reed. Find Kane's. Find something that will pull him away from the target for long enough to grab her." Emily listened to the recording with growing horror. "They're going to go after Kane now. Because of me." "They can try," Kane said, his voice cold. "Let them." But Rachel was more concerned. "We need to move on this now. Blackwood is planning something, and we don't know what. If they manage to separate you from Emily, if they get her alone." "They won't," Kane interrupted. "Because we're going to end this. Tonight." The plan was aggressive and risky. Kane would send a message to Reed, through channels that Blackwood was monitoring, saying that Emily needed to be transported to the Norfolk Naval Medical Center for a routine medical checkup. It would be a small convoy, minimal security, on public roads during daylight hours. Perfect opportunity for an ambush. Except Emily wouldn't actually be in the convoy. She'd be safely hidden in a different location while Kane and his SEAL team waited for Blackwood's people to make their move. "We'll catch them in the act," Kane explained. "With enough evidence to arrest Blackwood and everyone working with him. It ends this, Emily. For good." Emily wanted to believe him. But she'd learned over the past weeks that nothing in this world was certain except that people with money and power rarely faced real consequences. "What if it doesn't work?" she asked quietly. "What if they escape, or the charges don't stick, or—" "Then we try again," Kane said simply. "And we keep trying until you're safe. That's not negotiable, Emily. I'm not losing you the way I lost Lisa." The raw emotion in his voice made Emily's chest tighten. Over the past weeks, she and Kane had become something more than protector and protected. They'd become friends, partners even. She trusted him in a way she'd never trusted anyone before. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." The convoy left the safe house at 1400 hours the next day, 2 SUVs with darkly tinted windows, driving the route to Norfolk Naval Medical Center. Inside the lead vehicle, Kane sat with 3 other SEALs and Havoc. The second vehicle held 4 more operators. Emily wasn't in either vehicle. She was watching from a surveillance van 3 blocks away, Rachel beside her, both women wearing headsets connected to Kane's team comm system. "This feels wrong," Emily muttered. "Using myself as bait even when I'm not actually there." "It's the safest way," Rachel assured her. "If they think you're in that convoy, they'll focus all their attention there. Meanwhile, you're protected by a different team in a different location." The convoy reached the halfway point without incident. Kane's voice came over the comm, calm and professional. "Nothing yet. Maintain formation." Then, as they passed through an underpass, contact. Black panel van, 3 o'clock, approaching fast. Emily gripped the edge of her seat, watching the surveillance feed on multiple screens. The van was moving to intercept, and there were at least 4 armed men inside. "They're going to try to stop us," Kane reported. "All units, prepare for engagement." But before the van could reach the convoy, 3 unmarked vehicles appeared from side streets, boxing it in. The SEAL backup team that had been waiting for exactly this moment. Federal agents. "Exit the vehicle with your hands up." For a moment, it looked like the men in the van might comply. Then someone inside made a decision, and gunfire erupted. Emily watched in horror as the surveillance feed showed the firefight, brief, intense, and completely one-sided. Kane's team had the training, the positioning, and the element of surprise. Within 60 seconds, 3 of the men from the van were in custody, and the 4th was down with a gunshot wound to the shoulder. All subjects secured, Kane's voice reported. Medical en route for the injured hostile. We're searching the van now. Emily waited, her heart pounding. Beside her, Rachel was already on the phone with Captain Morrison, coordinating the arrests. Then Kane's voice came back over the comm, and he sounded satisfied. We've got phones, laptops, and documentation. This is the whole operation, Rachel. Everyone Blackwood hired, everyone Reed was working with. We got them all. Blackwood himself was arrested an hour later, found in his office at DIA headquarters trying to delete files from his computer. Reed was picked up at his apartment without incident, looking more relieved than angry when they cuffed him. The full extent of the conspiracy unfolded over the next week. Blackwood had been selling classified technology to foreign buyers for years, using his position at the DIA to identify valuable targets like Emily. Reed had been his inside source at the Navy, feeding him information about classified projects and the people working on them. Webb had just been the latest hired gun, a mercenary willing to do whatever it took to steal the information Blackwood's clients wanted. There were 6 other targets before you, Morrison told Emily during a final debriefing. Scientists, engineers, analysts. Some of them were successfully compromised. Others. He paused. Let's just say you're lucky to be alive, Dr. Carter. I'm lucky Marcus Kane and Havoc were there, Emily corrected. Without them, I'd be another statistic. Morrison nodded. Chief Kane will be receiving a commendation for his work on this case. And Havoc, well, we're working on figuring out what kind of medal to give a dog. Emily smiled despite herself. He deserves whatever you can give him. And more. With Blackwood and Reed in custody, the threat to Emily finally lifted. She was cleared to return to her normal life, though normal would never quite be the same as it had been before. She moved back into her townhouse, though Kane insisted on upgrading her security system and teaching her advanced self-defense techniques, just in case. Havoc spent most nights at her place now, having apparently decided that Emily was part of his pack and needed regular supervision. Kane himself was supposed to return to regular SEAL duties, but Emily noticed he kept finding excuses to stop by, checking on her security, dropping off Havoc for socialization training, bringing groceries because he happened to be at the store anyway. Finally, 3 weeks after the arrests, Emily called him on it. You know you don't have to keep checking on me, she said as Kane inspected her new door locks for the 3rd time that week. Blackwood's in prison. Reed's talking to federal investigators. The threat is over. I know, Kane said, but he didn't stop what he was doing. So why are you here? Kane was quiet for a long moment. Then he straightened and met her eyes. Because I got used to having you around. You and Havoc both. And now that the mission's over, I'm not sure what comes next. Emily's heart skipped. Over the past weeks, she'd developed feelings for Kane that went way beyond gratitude or professional respect. But she'd assumed he was just doing his job, that once the danger passed, he'd move on to the next mission and forget about the civilian engineer he'd protected. What do you want to come next? She asked quietly. Kane crossed the room to where she stood, Havoc padding along beside him. I want to keep seeing you. Not as an assignment, but as, whatever this is. Whatever it could be. He reached out and took her hand. If you want that too. Emily felt tears prick her eyes, happy tears this time, not fear or grief. I want that. Very much. Kane smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine, nothing like the professional mask he wore on missions. He pulled her into a hug, and Emily leaned into his strength, feeling safe in a way that had nothing to do with security systems or weapons training. Havoc woofed softly, his tail wagging, as if giving his approval to this new development. Good, Kane murmured into Emily's hair. Because I wasn't sure how to tell Havoc that he couldn't keep sleeping on your couch. He's gotten really attached. Emily laughed, pulling back to look at the dog, who was watching them with bright, intelligent eyes. He can sleep on my couch as long as he wants. He's earned it. We both have, Kane said, and then he was kissing her, gentle and sweet and full of promise. In that moment, Emily realized that sometimes the worst experiences in life led to the best outcomes. She'd been terrified, hunted, almost killed. But she'd also found courage she didn't know she had, formed bonds that would last a lifetime, and discovered that she was stronger than anyone, including herself, had ever given her credit for. And she'd found Marcus Kane and Havoc, two warriors who taught her that protection wasn't weakness, that asking for help was brave, and that some promises were worth any risk to keep. 6 months after Blackwood's arrest, Emily stood in her lab at the naval shipyard, watching as the first production batch of her stealth coating was applied to a destroyer undergoing refit. The coating gleamed in the artificial light, iridescent, almost liquid-looking, a technological marvel that would save countless American lives. She should have felt proud. And she did. But there was something nagging at her, a loose thread that kept pulling at her attention. Webb and Blackwood were both in federal prison, awaiting trial on espionage and attempted murder charges. Reed had taken a plea deal and was cooperating with investigators. The conspiracy had been exposed, the network dismantled. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. She'd spent the past few months diving into the case files. Captain Morrison had given her access as part of the investigation closure process. She'd read every interview transcript, every piece of evidence, every communication between the conspirators. And she'd found anomalies. Small things, mostly. Payments that didn't quite match the timeline. References to a primary client that Blackwood had never identified. Encrypted messages that even the NSA couldn't fully decode. You're obsessing again, Kane said from the doorway, making Emily jump. She turned to find him leaning against the frame, Havoc sitting calmly at his side. Both of them watched her with nearly identical expressions of fond exasperation. I'm not obsessing, Emily protested. I'm investigating. Same thing. Kane crossed the room and looked at the documents spread across her desk. Emily, it's over. The bad guys are caught. You're safe. Why are you still digging into this? Because it doesn't add up, Emily insisted. She pointed to a financial record. Look at this payment to Webb. It's dated 3 days before Blackwood supposedly hired him. That means someone else made the initial contact. Could be a clerical error. A misfiled date. Could be. Or it could be evidence that Blackwood wasn't actually in charge. That he was working for someone else. Kane studied the document more carefully, his expression shifting from skeptical to interested. Show me what else you found. For the next hour, Emily walked him through her findings. Individually, each anomaly could be explained away. But taken together, they painted a disturbing picture. Blackwood might have been just another middleman, and the real architect of the conspiracy was still out there. If you're right, Kane said slowly, then whoever hired Blackwood has gotten away completely. They've sacrificed their agents but protected themselves. And they still want my formula, Emily added. They paid millions of dollars for it. They're not going to just give up because their first attempt failed. Kane pulled out his phone. I'm calling Rachel. If there's a bigger player we missed, she needs to know. Rachel Torres arrived at the shipyard within 2 hours, bringing Captain Morrison with her. They reviewed Emily's findings in a secure conference room, the documents spread across a large table. This is thin, Morrison said after studying everything. Circumstantial at best. Any defense attorney would tear it apart in court. But it's worth investigating, Rachel argued. If Emily's right, we've only caught the lower tier of this operation. The real power player is still active. And still dangerous, Kane added. Emily's not safe until we identify the primary client and neutralize them. Morrison sighed heavily. All right. I'll authorize a continued investigation. But quietly. If we start making noise about a bigger conspiracy, whoever's out there will disappear. We need to be smart about this. They spent the next week following the money. Financial forensics experts traced Blackwood's payments back through multiple shell companies and offshore accounts. It was painstaking work, but slowly, a picture emerged. The money ultimately came from a defense contractor called Titan Strategic Solutions, a mid-sized firm that specialized in military technology consulting. On paper, Titan was completely legitimate: government contracts, proper licensing, regular audits. But here's the interesting part, Rachel said during a briefing. Titan Strategic Solutions has been bidding on the same contracts that would use Emily's stealth coding technology. They've submitted proposals to produce the coding themselves, claiming they have equivalent capabilities. They don't, Emily said immediately. I've reviewed their technical specifications. Their coding is years behind mine. It doesn't work nearly as well. Exactly. So they had a strong financial motivation to steal your formula, either to improve their own product, or to prevent the Navy from using yours so they could win contracts by default. Kane leaned forward, his eyes hard. Who runs Titan? Rachel pulled up a profile on her laptop. CEO is a man named David Merrick. Former Army colonel, distinguished service record, retired 8 years ago and went into the private sector. By all accounts, he's successful, respected, and completely clean. Too clean, Emily muttered. Nobody's that perfect. I did some deeper digging, Rachel continued. Merrick has connections throughout the defense establishment, Pentagon officials, congressional staffers, intelligence officers. He's positioned himself as a power broker, someone who can open doors and make deals happen. Sounds like someone with the resources to hire people like Blackwood, Kane observed. And the motivation to steal Emily's formula, Rachel agreed. But we have no proof. Nothing that directly connects Merrick to Blackwood or Webb or the conspiracy. Morrison stood, pacing the room. So what do we do? We can't accuse a prominent defense contractor of espionage without evidence. And if we tip our hand that we're investigating him, he'll lawyer up and we'll never get anything. Emily had been quiet, thinking. Now she spoke up. What if we make him come to us? Everyone turned to look at her. Explain, Morrison said. Merrick wants my formula. He tried to steal it through Blackwood and Webb, and that failed. But he still needs it. His company is losing contracts to competitors who have better technology. So. Emily took a breath. What if I offered to sell it to him? The room erupted in objections. Kane was loudest. Absolutely not. No way. We're not dangling you in front of this guy like bait. I'm not talking about a physical meeting, Emily interrupted. I'm talking about reaching out through intermediaries, letting word get back to him that I'm frustrated with the Navy, that I'm thinking about leaving and taking my research with me. Make him think I'm corruptible. He'll never believe it, Rachel said. You turned down $5 million from Webb. Why would Merrick think you'd suddenly change your mind? Emily smiled grimly. Because I've been through a traumatic experience. Because I almost died. Because sometimes trauma makes people reassess their priorities and do things they never would have done before. She looked around the room. It's plausible. And if Merrick is as desperate as I think he is, he'll take the bait. Morrison was shaking his head. This is exactly the kind of operation that gets civilians killed. With all due respect, Captain, I stopped being just a civilian the day Webb tried to kidnap me. I've been living in this world for 6 months now. I know the risks. Emily's voice was firm. And I'm tired of being hunted. I want to end this. For good. Kane looked at her with something between frustration and admiration. You're the most stubborn person I've ever met. I learned from the best, Emily shot back, meeting his eyes. The silence stretched. Finally, Morrison spoke. If we do this, and I'm not saying we will, it would have to be completely controlled. Emily wouldn't be anywhere near Merrick. Everything would be handled through cutouts and surveillance. At the first sign of danger, we pull the plug. Agreed, Emily said immediately. And Cain and Havoc would be her primary protection, Morrison continued. If something goes wrong, if Merrick makes a move we don't anticipate, they're the last line of defense. That was always the plan, Cain said quietly. The operation took 3 weeks to set up. Emily accidentally let slip to certain colleagues that she was considering leaving the Navy's civilian program. She complained about bureaucracy, about feeling undervalued, about wanting more money and recognition for her work. Word spread, as word always does in tight-knit communities. And within 2 weeks, Emily received a call from an unfamiliar number. Dr. Carter. My name is Patricia Vance. I'm a recruiter for Titan Strategic Solutions. We've heard about your incredible work on stealth coding technology, and we'd love to discuss employment opportunities. Emily's heart raced, but she kept her voice calm. I'm not sure I'm interested in leaving my current position. I understand. But what if I told you that Titan is prepared to offer triple your current salary, plus equity in the company and full creative control over your research? No bureaucracy, no oversight, just you and a team of world-class engineers working on cutting-edge technology. That's generous. Dr. Carter, your formula could be worth billions. We believe in compensating our talent appropriately. Would you be willing to meet with our CEO, David Merrick, to discuss details? Maybe. But I'd need certain guarantees first. Of course. Mr. Merrick is very interested in speaking with you personally. Would next Tuesday work? Emily glanced at Cain, who was listening to the recorded call with a grim expression. He nodded once. Tuesday works, Emily said. The meeting was set for a restaurant in Richmond, public, well-lit, plenty of witnesses. Emily wore a wire and had 4 different surveillance teams positioned around the area. Cain and Havoc were in a van 2 blocks away, ready to respond at a moment's notice. David Merrick was exactly what Emily expected, silver-haired, distinguished, wearing an expensive suit and $1 million smile. He greeted her warmly, ordered wine without asking if she wanted any, and launched into a sales pitch about Titan's vision for the future of defense technology. Emily played her role perfectly, interested but cautious, asking questions about salary and benefits while subtly steering the conversation toward the real topic. I have to be honest, Mr. Merrick, she said finally. I'm not sure how comfortable I am with the ethical implications of working for a private contractor. My formula was developed with taxpayer money, for the benefit of American service members. Taking it to the private sector feels wrong. Merrick's smile didn't waver. I understand your concerns, Dr. Carter. But consider this, the Navy will bury your invention in bureaucracy for years. By the time it's fully deployed, foreign nations will have developed countermeasures. But if you work with Titan, we can get your coding into production within months. We can sell it to allies, improve it, make it even better. You'd be saving more lives, faster, than the Navy ever could. And making Titan very wealthy in the process, Emily pointed out. Everyone wins. That's how the best deals work. Merrick leaned forward, his voice dropping slightly. Emily, may I call you Emily, you've been through a terrible experience. You almost lost your life because of your work. Don't you think you deserve compensation for that? Don't you think you deserve to benefit from your own genius? Emily pretended to consider this. What exactly are you offering? $10 million up front, another 10 when you deliver the complete formula and manufacturing process. Plus equity and salary. You'd never have to worry about money again. That's substantial. You're worth it. Merrick signaled the waiter for the check. Think about it. Take a few days. But Emily, I should mention, this offer won't stay on the table forever. We have other options, other sources. You're our first choice, but if you decline, you'll find another way to get my formula, Emily finished. Merrick's smile became slightly colder. I wouldn't put it quite like that. But yes, Titan will move forward with or without you. The question is whether you want to benefit from your own work, or whether you want to watch someone else profit from it. Emily stood, extending her hand. I'll need to think about this. Of course. Merrick shook her hand, his grip firm. But don't think too long, Emily. Opportunities like this don't come around twice. Back in the surveillance van, Emily pulled off the wire with shaking hands. Did you get all that? Every word, Rachel confirmed. But Emily, he didn't actually admit to anything illegal. He made an employment offer and implied that Titan has other sources for stealth coding technology. That's not evidence of conspiracy. He threatened me, Emily protested. He said if I didn't cooperate, they'd get my formula anyway. Implied. Suggested. But never explicitly stated. Rachel looked frustrated. A good lawyer will argue he was just being aggressive in his recruiting pitch. Kane slammed his hand against the van wall. So what, we let him walk. He hired Blackwood. He ordered Webb to kidnap Emily. He's responsible for everything that happened, and we just let him get away with it. Unless we can get him to incriminate himself more directly, yes, Rachel said. That's how the law works. Emily sat in silence, thinking. Merrick was too smart to confess on tape. He'd deny everything, hide behind his lawyers and his connections. Unless. What if I accepted his offer? Emily said quietly. Kane's head snapped toward her. What? I mean, what if I pretended to accept? Met with him again, started the process of handing over my formula. Eventually, he'd have to do something illegal, accept stolen classified information, arrange for payment through illegal channels, something we could prove in court. That's entrapment, Morrison said from his position at the surveillance equipment. Is it? I'm not a law enforcement officer. I'm a civilian making a business deal. If Merrick chooses to break the law during that deal, that's on him. Rachel was shaking her head slowly. It's risky. If Merrick realizes you're working with us, if he gets suspicious. He could have Emily killed before we could stop him, Kane finished. No. We find another way. What other way? Emily demanded. Merrick's too careful. He's protected himself with layers of deniability. The only way to catch him is to go deeper, to make him think he's won. She's right, Morrison said reluctantly. I hate it, but she's right. If we want solid evidence against Merrick, we need to let the deal proceed further. Kane looked at Emily for a long moment. Then he said, very quietly, I almost lost you once. I won't risk it again. Emily reached out and took his hand. You won't lose me. Because you and Havoc will be there, every step of the way, making sure I stay safe. Right? Kane's jaw was tight, but finally he nodded. Every step. And if Merrick so much as looks at you wrong, I'm ending this operation and taking you somewhere safe. Mission be damned. Fair enough, Emily agreed. The plan moved forward carefully. Emily called Merrick the next day and told him she was interested in his offer. They arranged another meeting, this time at Titan's headquarters, a sleek office building in downtown Richmond. Emily wore a wire again, but this time Kane insisted on additional precautions. A tracking device sewn into her clothing. A panic button disguised as a bracelet. And Havoc, who would be waiting in a van in Titan's parking garage, ready to respond within seconds if needed. Remember, Kane told her before she went inside, you're not trying to be a hero. You're gathering evidence. Get Merrick to talk about the conspiracy, about Blackwood, about anything that connects him to the crimes. And at the first sign of trouble, you press that panic button and we come get you. Understood? Understood, Emily replied. She looked at Havoc, who was watching her with those intelligent eyes. Keep him calm, okay boy. He worries too much. Havoc's tail wagged once, and Emily swore the dog understood exactly what she was saying. The meeting with Merrick went smoothly at first. He showed her around Titan's facilities, introduced her to senior engineers, talked about the company's vision and values. Everything was professional, even inspiring. Then they went to his private office, and Merrick closed the door. Now, he said, his tone shifting to something more businesslike, let's talk about the actual arrangement. You'll provide us with the complete formula, including all manufacturing specifications and application protocols. In exchange, you'll receive the $20 million we discussed, plus equity. And my employment with the Navy? Emily asked. You'll need to resign, of course. We can't have you maintaining ties to government agencies while working for us. Merrick pulled out a contract. This document transfers all intellectual property rights for your stealth coding technology to Titan Strategic Solutions. Once you sign it, the money will be transferred to your account within 24 hours. Emily pretended to read the contract, buying time. This says I'm transferring technology that was developed using government funding. That's illegal. Only if someone finds out, Merrick said smoothly. And who's going to tell them? You'll be a wealthy woman, Emily. You can disappear, start a new life. No one will ever know. But you'll have my formula. You'll use it. Through careful intermediaries and offshore subsidiaries, yes. By the time anyone traces the technology back to its source, the trail will be so muddied that no one will be able to prove anything. Emily looked up at Merrick. You've done this before, haven't you? Stolen technology, I mean. Merrick's smile was cold now, all pretense of friendliness gone. I've acquired valuable assets through various means, yes. It's called business, Emily. And it's how people like me stay ahead. People like you. Emily's hand moved subtly toward her panic button. You mean people who hire mercenaries to kidnap and torture scientists? Merrick's expression didn't change. I don't know what you're talking about. Marcus Webb. Gerald Blackwood. They worked for you. I've never heard those names before. Merrick's voice was flat. And I think this meeting is over. Clearly you're not as interested in our offer as you claimed. He moved toward his desk, and Emily saw his hand moving toward something, a drawer, maybe a phone, maybe something worse. She pressed the panic button. Merrick must have seen the movement because his expression twisted into rage. You're wearing a wire. You stupid bitch, you were working with the feds this whole time. He pulled open his desk drawer, and Emily saw the gun inside. She didn't think. She just moved, throwing herself sideways as Merrick grabbed the weapon. The first shot went wide, shattering the office window behind her. The second shot never came because the office door exploded inward and Kane was there, weapon drawn, Havoc at his side. Drop it. Kane roared. Drop the weapon now. Merrick swung the gun toward Kane, and Havoc launched himself across the room like a missile. 70 pounds of trained combat dog hit Merrick in the chest, bearing him to the ground. The gun skittered away across the polished floor. Merrick screamed as Havoc's jaws clamped on his arm, not a kill bite, but a hold that was unbreakable. Kane was there in seconds, cuffing Merrick while Havoc maintained his grip. Release, Kane commanded, and Havoc immediately let go, backing away but staying alert. Emily stood on shaking legs, her ears ringing from the gunshot. Kane looked at her, and she saw the fear in his eyes, fear for her, fear of what could have happened. I'm okay, she managed. Kane, I'm okay. More agents poured into the office, Rachel and her team, Morrison and Naval Security, FBI agents who'd been waiting on standby. Merrick was hauled to his feet, blood running from the bite wound on his arm, his face twisted with rage. "This is entrapment," he snarled. "You'll never make it stick. I have lawyers." "You pulled a gun on a civilian," Morrison interrupted coldly. "You fired at her. That's attempted murder, and we have 24 witnesses including a Navy SEAL and a combat assault dog. Your lawyers can't help you now." As they dragged Merrick away, Emily felt her knees give out. Kane caught her, pulling her against his chest. "It's over," he murmured. "It's really over this time. You're safe." Emily clung to him, feeling the adrenaline drain away and leave her hollow and exhausted. Havoc pressed against her legs, offering his solid, warm presence. "I knew you'd come," Emily whispered. "I knew you'd be there." "Always," Kane promised. "Always." The trial was extensive and highly publicized. Merrick fought the charges at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. His own words on tape. The gun. The testimony of Kane and Rachel and the FBI agents. And when forensic accountants finished tracing Merrick's finances, they found a web of illegal activities stretching back years: stolen technology, bribed officials, payments to mercenaries and assassins around the world. Merrick had built an empire on theft and murder, and it all came crashing down. He was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Blackwood received 30 years. Webb got 25. Reed, who'd cooperated fully with investigators, received a reduced sentence of 10 years. For Emily, the end of the trial meant the end of looking over her shoulder. It meant going back to work without armed guards. It meant sleeping through the night without nightmares. It meant being free. On the one-year anniversary of Webb's initial attack, Emily stood in her lab at the naval shipyard, watching as the 100th ship equipped with her stealth coating left dry dock. A destroyer, sleek and deadly, nearly invisible to enemy radar. How many lives would her invention save? Impossible to know. But it was enough to know she'd made a difference. "Proud of yourself?" Kane asked from the doorway. Emily turned to smile at him. "A little, yeah." He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. Havoc, now a permanent fixture in both their lives, wagged his tail from his spot by the door. "You should be. You changed naval warfare. You caught a spy network. You helped put away some very bad people." Kane kissed her forehead. "And you did it all while being incredibly stubborn and reckless and brave." "I couldn't have done any of it without you and Havoc," Emily said. "You saved my life. Multiple times. And you gave me a reason to save it," Kane replied quietly. "After Lisa died, I spent years just going through the motions. Working missions, following orders, but never really feeling anything. Then I met you, and suddenly I had something worth fighting for again." Emily felt tears prick her eyes. "I love you, you know that." "I know. And I love you too." Kane pulled back slightly to look at her. "Which is why I want to ask you something." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Emily's heart stopped. "Emily Carter," Kane said, his voice rough with emotion, "you're the strongest, smartest, most stubborn woman I've ever met. You faced down mercenaries and spies and never gave up. You trusted me to protect you, and you let me into your life even when it was dangerous. And now I can't imagine my life without you in it." He opened the box, revealing a simple ring with a single diamond. "Will you marry me?" Emily couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face, and Kane slipped the ring onto her finger. Havoc barked once, as if offering his approval, and they both laughed. "I think that's a yes from both of us," Kane said, and then he was kissing her, and Emily was kissing him back, and everything else, the lab, the ships, the missions, faded away until there was just the two of them and the dog who brought them together. 6 months later, on a sunny Saturday in October, Emily married Marcus Kane in a small ceremony on the beach in Virginia Beach. Rachel Torres was her maid of honor. Morrison gave her away. And Havoc, wearing a bow tie around his collar, served as ring bearer, a role he performed with perfect military precision. It was small and simple and perfect. During the reception, as they danced together under string lights, Emily looked up at her new husband and felt overwhelming gratitude for the strange journey that had brought them together. "What are you thinking?" Kane asked. "I'm thinking that a year ago, I was just a scientist who wanted to be left alone to do her work. And now I'm married to a Navy SEAL with a combat dog who sleeps on our couch." Kane laughed. "Life takes strange turns." "The best kind of strange," Emily agreed. She glanced over at Havoc, who was being fed cake by various wedding guests despite Kane's strict no-people food rule. "Do you think he knows how important he is? That he saved my life?" "He knows he's a good boy," Kane said. "That's all that matters to him." Emily smiled. "He's the best boy. And you're the best man." "I don't know about that. But I'm trying to be the man you deserve." "You already are," Emily said firmly. "You showed up when I needed you. You protected me when I was helpless. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And you loved me even when I was difficult and stubborn, Anne." "I love you because you're difficult and stubborn," Kane interrupted. "You don't quit. You don't back down. You're a fighter, Emily. Just like me. Just like Havoc. We're a team now." "A family," Emily corrected. "Yeah," Kane agreed softly. "A family." They danced until the stars came out, surrounded by friends and teammates and the dog who'd helped save Emily's life. And when Emily looked around at all of it, the happiness, the love, the peace, she knew that everything she'd been through had been worth it. Because sometimes the worst moments in life led to the best ones. Sometimes being hunted led to being found. And sometimes, when you were at your most vulnerable and afraid, the right people, and the right dog, showed up to remind you that you were never as alone as you thought. Emily Carter had started this journey as a quiet engineer who just wanted to do good work. She'd ended it as a woman who knew her own strength, who'd faced down evil and won, who'd found love in the most unexpected place. And she'd learned the most important lesson of all, that courage wasn't about never being afraid. It was about acting despite fear. It was about trusting others to help you. It was about believing that even in the darkest moments, there was still hope. Because somewhere out there, a Navy SEAL and his combat dog were watching over people like her. Protecting them. Saving them. Loving them. And that made all the difference.